So how's everything going good? Got a good week so far? Good. Yeah, well, hey, it looks like it's 7 o'clock on the dot, guys. Are we ready to go? All right, let's see here. We got the comments active. Just want to make sure we don't miss anything this time. Last time, I don't know, somehow I was getting trapped out of the messages. So anyway, all right, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another great episode of Conversations Under the Hood. I am your host, Robert Helm, and we have to my right the wonderful Dr. Helm, and across here we have Mr. Robert Green, aka Compass Ion. And tonight we just want to thank you so much for joining us, where we're going to have us another great conversation. And tonight we're going to kind of segue off of the previous two shows, actually, where we met with Mr. Manswell T. Peterson to discuss his books and his journey as an author. And so we've really been kind of talking about literacy and business and family and, you know, a lot of different things like that. And so I figured today we might have a great opportunity. This is October, right? Yeah. National Bullying Prevention Month. And so we are just kind of taking some time to pause for that and also include that in our discussion tonight. So we thought it might be appropriate to discuss literacy, its importance in pretty much every aspect of our life as we talk about business and as we talk about family. And so I just want to open up this evening with just introducing a couple of items that we have here on the table this evening. We have the bullying prevention guide that we spoke briefly about last week, and so we were actually able to rummage up a few hard copies. And in the process of doing that, man, I stumbled across a lot of great things, you know, from, you remember the flyers when we were doing the announcements at the library, letting everybody know that we were holding forums, and, you know, the little, what was it, Nina Wright's sponsorship cards, and just, it was amazing to kind of walk through that again and just see how, you know, at one point when our family was really driving literacy and driving bullying prevention, the impact really in a way, because it brought back the memories of a lot of those conversations and moments that we shared with people. So, Rob, unfortunately, you and I hadn't rekindled our, well, I shouldn't say rekindled, but reconnected at that time. But we've talked about it briefly. As a matter of fact, this I brought a extra copy for you to, that one has edits and things in it, but it'll just kind of give you an idea as we're talking this evening, things that you might, you know, might spark some ideas for conversation, really.
Not that I was a bully or anything. We don't want people to think that I was that guy or anything. Never that.
Yeah, on the other side of the fence.
Right,
Let's
right.
have a bullying guide prevention anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know, the beautiful thing about it that I remember anyways, when we used to talk about bullying prevention, was our angle was to look at it from multiple perspectives, right? Which was dealing with, you know, the aspect of the bully themselves, but then also the bystander, the bystander, and then the person who was being victimized by the bullying.
Right.
And so I thought that kind of gave us an opportunity to, you know, really gain some insight as to how bullying impacts people's lives, you know, because each one of those, if you will, roles that I just mentioned kind of got a different play in the whole, right? The whole scenario, if you will. So, so with that being the case, I thought I might, before I like dive into really asking questions and throwing, you know, questions out there, you know, I was hoping that, you know, tonight we might get a little participation from the audience. So, you know, if we are able to maybe share this, or for the people who might be watching, share with others. Bullying and bullying prevention, I think, is a very important subject for families, for people who are in business, for even people who are just working a regular job, because we know it happens, you know, in a lot of different capacities.
Oh, yeah.
So just off the, you know, rip, if you will, the word bullying or bullying prevention, how does that what does that resonate with you? How does that resonate with and either one of y'all? Feel free to kind of take a jab at it. But
I guess focusing on what bullying really is would be the first key step, and then then addressing the problem and issues on how to you know how to address those issues. I don't know. I haven't dealt with a lot of bullies in my life,
sure.
so I mean it's something I want to look into. I don't have much feedback on it yet, but I'm
Okay. Well,
I'm in so much pain today. I'm so sorry, y'all. My mood may be a little bit altered, but I'm working through this thing. So bear with
we
me.
I notice
appreciate
you're
that.
flinching a little bit.
Yeah,
Been
I pulled
bullied?
something. So, your husband.
Oh,
he's a
don't put it on
bully.
me.
But how long have you bullied?
No.
You're a bully.
But we're working on it.
You're working on it.
This is see.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
this
Just
is the
talk
guy to
through
get you
that.
through. That's funny. That's
All
funny.
right, we'll
I'm
talk
sorry.
later.
No,
But,
go ahead. So
Back.
just what are your thoughts? Like, what is bullying? Like, what comes to
Yeah,
mind when you think
bullying
of bullying?
prevention, for me, you've said it, correctly. It's a multifaceted issue, right? It's not just about the bullied. It's also about the bully. What's going on? What's your story? Why do you feel the need to bully? What are you hiding? What are you afraid people might see if you are not acting like a bully?
Maybe
You know?
he's being bullied and just
Exactly.
copycatting.
What are
Maybe
you hiding? So,
Right.
and the other thing too is parents. We have to think about parents too, because as a mother of children that were bullied, it was really devastating to see your child go through that,
Right.
and to see your child not getting the necessary help that he or she needs or they needs, right? So that was really, really devastating. And so the support for the parents, how to deal with it, how to coach your child, how to support your child, and all of that, instead of turning your child into a bully.
Right.
Because the easiest and the laziest thing, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is to teach your child to be a bully, right? Fight back, punch him or her or them in the mouth, all these things, and then further re-traumatizing your child who is not aggressive in nature, shaming them. So there's a lot to unpack there. It's not as simple as it seems. But more than anything, I think every child, whether is being bullied or showing the signs of being a bully to try to hide what exactly is going on with them,
Right.
I think it's up to us adults to really see them, hear them, listen to them, and even make them the part of the solution.
Absolutely.
How can I help you, instead of jumping in front of them and say, hey, or sometimes, find yourself engaging even with a bully, further embarrassing your child.
Right.
I've seen some parents trying to fight the bully or try to really retaliate, and the
and
child
doing the
is just
same thing that
exactly, and the child is getting embarrassed, like, oh my God, and therefore that's why a lot of children just don't tell us what's going on.
Right.
So that's but yeah, it's not as simple as making the bully stop being stop bullying, but it's a really complex issue that needs to be addressed from different angles.
Right. Absolutely. What we got? Madonna says, "Hello guys. I'm locked in. Caught you guys live this week. So hey, we're glad
Awesome.
to have you on with us live. Thank you
Hey,
so much."
Shane, you're welcome.
That's right. And if you have any comments or any suggestions, regarding this topic, bullying prevention, I think is something that we all, I think it resonates with us in one way or another. So
Absolutely.
I know that again, my goal with tonight's show is to really try to, just shed a little bit of light on it. We try to leave nuggets right every day on the table. And that's again why I thought it might be a good idea, since we've been talking about literacy and we've been talking about business and we've been talking about family, bullying prevention. There's a way that we can kind of speak to all of those subjects, because I guess I might kick it off like relating to it from my own personal experience, right?
Right.
When I think about when I was bullied in my life and the impact that it had on me, primarily I was bullied as a young child. As I got a little older, I was kind of big or bigger than most of the other people, so I didn't really deal with a whole lot of what I would consider bullying, which again is defined differently by other people. But
I don't want to bully you, but I just noticed that we all have all sports on except for you.
You were so right.
Same.
Listen, I got caught up in, and I can tell because the weather has changed up here. My head can feel all of that. So I hadn't thought about that. I just thought I could deal with the chills. So now it's proper. Now we can actually have a conversation under the hood. Yes, all right. So thank you. I was so excited about showing off my bald spot, man, that I just lost track. So please forgive me. But anyway, so as I think about those experiences as a young man, and this would have been like elementary school pretty much for me, right? I used to get chased home. I used to be scared to go eat lunch, for some reason, and I never did know why the people were bullying me because I didn't really know the people, you know what I mean? And so I always just thought because I was small or because I was alone or whatever, that's why people were picking on me. And so I managed to navigate through that, doing a lot of running, which I think helped me as an athlete. Because, I was great at track, good at basketball, So I guess those, when I look at it, I guess I try to find, that's my humor in it, right, to try to deal with it in that way. But definitely at the time that it was happening, I can see how it hinders you from, quality of life, really.
Yeah.
And whether you're young or old, and so I can only think about scenarios too as I got older, not necessarily me, but observing other people how I would define bullying on the job. Watching how people mistreat other people for one reason or another.
Right.
And how easy it is for other people to join in, whether it's like purposefully or like on the schoolyard, sometimes you join in to kind of keep yourself out of the line of fire.
Yeah.
So the sad part about that is that the individual who is suffering, the victim, if you will, can't distinguish the difference between that or if you're a bully as well. And so, as I learn more, getting older and participating in some of these bullying-related things, as a business owner, and in some cases as a subordinate, right? I have to think about that as well, like not to let my strong personality intimidate people from wanting to speak up or speak out, as well as not being intimidated to the point where, because depending on your circumstance and situation, you might be the person who is feeling somewhat oppressed. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to, as I get older and become more involved in things, especially community-related things, is to be more perceptive to, how people are internalizing me, and so just for my own self, because I know people have told me that I have certain expressions or strong responses that might come across as.
I think it's the look, Rob. What do you think? It's the look.
It's the look.
It's the look.
Oh my goodness. It's that wild eye.
Yeah, that look. It's the look. I'm like, hold up.
You know how a stallion rears up and
Yeah. It's the look.
Oh,
like,
that's
stop looking
hilarious.
at people like they something,
That's
like.
hilarious.
And it's just, and I've learned that it's just you trying to understand.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's, you're in depth trying to understand, so it gives you,
Right.
Yeah. Well, my goal really, is definitely to do better and be better. And during the time when we were dealing with this bullying prevention, I think that was one of the points in my life where it was really starting to kind of help me. You know what I mean? Because one thing that I have learned is that when you are teaching, you tend to learn a lot. If you really are attempting to be a good teacher.
Right.
Because in order to be effective at that, you have to know the subject matter, right? And so, so we dived into this bullying prevention guide, which we have version 2. We haven't released that one yet, because during that pandemic and things, that really kind of shut down this whole, process, because we really had it going well, man. We had a lot of support from the businesses in the community. We work with the mayor. We work with a lot of organizations. So it's definitely something that I think people have a sincere interest in, whether it's outspoken or not. So again, without going through all of that and reliving that whole experience, can you, either of you, think of a situation where bullying prevention would have been, excuse me, not bullying prevention, but bullying,
Yeah.
may have created a situation or a circumstance that could have impacted someone's family or financial situation.
So I'll go first with that. So most of the time when we talk about bullying, we think that's something that's external, right? Children at school, employees at work. Sometimes it can happen within the family. All the siblings
Right.
bullying younger siblings,
Mm-hmm.
or louder siblings bullying, more quiet siblings. It happens in the family dynamic. It resonated with me, right? Because I was the youngest. I'm the youngest of all my siblings, youngest of the 8 children, 7, by my mother and 1 by my father. And of course, he's my auntie. He married to my mother and his sister too. That's another chapter for another day, right?
Okay.
So among all 8 of them, I was the youngest. And obviously, we tease a lot, but as the youngest, all the siblings are teasing and bullying you.
Right.
And it could be, in terms of like, we're having fun here. This is humorous. But is it really humorous when you're the brunt of the joke?
Right.
When you're the youngest one and your self esteem is just still developing and, all of that. So, I just want to point out that this is not really a very linear issue. I mean, it's almost in every part of our lives that we
Right.
participate in. You certainly see it with politicians, you see it with teachers, you see it at work, and all of that. But I think that this continue to go unchecked because nobody really want to address it the way it needs to be addressed.
Right.
Because
Right.
you can address it, but do you really restore justice?
Right.
The person who was bullied, do they feel like they're being supported? Do they feel like we did actually restore justice? And now we're in a situation where we will make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Right.
Right. So there's just so much to unpack there. And I'm glad, like Shane, here connected with us now. He's connecting all the way from UK. They are like 5 hours
wow.
difference.
Really?
Yeah, like 5 hours ahead of us
Right.
now. So when I was there visiting, one thing that really stood out to me was like him and Emily, his wife, how attentive they were to their kids. I was just like, wow, these are the parents that I wish I had when I was growing up, or the adults that I wish I had when I was growing up. They were always in tune about, both his son and his daughter. Like they can read their children's, energy almost, and you can see them responding to the children without them articulating what it is that's bothering them or not bothering them. And then I see that level of support that was just really, and he's pretty young. He's like my great nephew, basically. That's how young,
Right.
this dude is. But because then watching their parenting style and watching how close they are with their children, it created this adults, who knows that, what, I'm safe. There's that psychological safe space, when a child feels like no matter what the world does out there, no matter what people do out there, when I come home, I have my mom and dad and I'm safe.
Right.
I'm seen, I'm loved, and I'm considered. You know what I'm saying? And I was really impressed by these young parents, how great they were, And their children, obviously, they do experience different, sort of bullying, maybe not. But then the point is that the parents are not missing the beat because they're so in tune with
Right.
what's going on with their children, validating their children, at every moment. I remember my niece, my little niece, she was so upset because she said something to her mom, and her mom and I were having a conversation. So Emily, her mom, missed whatever, her daughter was saying, Ellie. And so
Hey,
she was
Madonna
so
said his
upset.
kids call him old.
Yeah,
So
they
glad
did.
somebody
Old
calls him
school.
that.
Oh, but they love him though. It's just so amazing to see those dynamics. But so she sat there and she was mad. You couldn't tell Ellie nothing. She was just mad. And so her mom intuitively, she was just like, okay, because she was talking to me. She turned her attention to her daughter. She's like, I'm sorry, darling, what's going on? And Ellie, she was like, no, you didn't listen. I was trying to talk to you. And one thing that I've noticed her mom to do was apologize. She was like, I am so sorry. I did not hear you. Can you tell me again? And that's one thing that we don't do enough. Like when you realize that you did something that may have not set well with anybody, regardless of their age, status, power, financial position, or whatever,
Right.
we don't apologize. And sometimes people just want to hear that you see them.
Right.
You're empathetic to them.
Right.
You care about how they feel. So she apologized and she said, I'm so sorry, honey. I did not hear you. I should have been listening, but I was not. The mean girl or the popular girls or the mean boys, the athletic and all of that.
Right.
If you're just a little bit different from that, you need an adult in your life that tells you that you are perfect as you are.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it's okay to be different. And sometimes people use our differences to bully each other.
Right.
In my husband's case, he was biracial, right? And I'm sure that did play a role, of being slightly different from majority of the kids, and therefore you were bullied, But where are the adults to say, hey, we all human, and it's okay to be different,
Right.
And celebrate you, and restore justice in that sense. So
Very true.
So,
So go ahead, Rob.
I mean, we talked about what we think bullying is and the different forms of bullying, but I just wanted to mention, because I see this in the book here. Okay, so what can you do to educate your kids and your children about bullying,
right.
so that they're aware of it? What are some things that you can think of to, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think some good key things that I think will really kind of set the stage for a solid conversation. Number one is this bullying prevention guide, because the goal of this guide was to do just that, to create an environment where you can talk. It helps you come up with, I don't want to say clarity, but it talks about bullying from so many different ways, and it prods questions and things like that, where it just opens up a dialogue, and you really don't know where you're going to kind of go with it, because that's why we call it bullying prevention for parents, kids, and adults. And you would think parents and adults is the same thing, but you got kids who
So
are
your
parents.
answer is get them some literature.
Well, it starts there, but it also starts with being a good example, and facilitate an environment where they're comfortable to come to you and talk to you about it. Or that you can maybe share your experience, because a lot of times as parents, we don't want our kids to see us in our vulnerable states, or to know of us in our vulnerable states. And so the fact that bullying can happen to anybody, adult or child, man or woman, it's just a thing that what I was pushing for was to make this a fundamental part of our education system. Just like we have math and reading and writing and all these other aspects, because all of those are important, which will take us into the next thing I want to talk about, which is literacy. And we can talk about how those two kind of correlate too, because when we think about bullying, there's a lot of people who may find themselves
because they can't read.
Either being bullied because they can't read, or sometimes that bully is feeling some kind of way because they can't read, or struggle with comprehension, or things of that nature. And so you never know which way that may go. And so starting with a dialogue, starting with a conversation, and an environment that is open and conducive to people sharing those kinds of experiences, I think that's a really good starting place.
Wow, Rob, you said something that just reminded me. But with our kids and how we came to write this book together with our kids and my husband and I, every night at the dinner table, we will take turns talking about, did you have a good day? What happened today? What do you want to share today? And that's when we start learning that our kids really, some of them were experiencing bullying, especially my son, right?
I have to stop you.
Yeah.
So, conversations.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Continue, I'm sorry.
Talk to your kids, and don't wait until there's a situation, right? Because it's just so much information, emotions involved when you wait until there's a situation. But if you talk to your kids every day and sincerely listen to them and be vulnerable, to my husband's point, you know what I'm saying, then they don't feel like because most of the time kids don't want to disappoint their parents. They want to tell you about that A+ they got in their test and everything else. They don't want to tell you anything that will make you feel, that they are less than. And also kids, another thing too, they're very protective of their parents. I certainly was, right? I didn't want to tell my mother what I thought would make her feel sad. You know what I'm saying? So I had to pretend I'm okay when I'm not, because I didn't want to look at her feeling sad for me. So you got to remember all of that. But yeah, so we will go around the room, and sometimes I will share, as an adult. Like, at work today, somebody made me feel bad because I wasn't able to pronounce this English word. And I'll tell my kids, mommy, English is their 10th language. Sometimes I struggle being articulate when it's easy for everybody else. So me articulating this particular word in a language that's not mine, it came across really funny, and people made fun of me, and that made me feel bad. And then my kids are more like, oh wow, you too? You're right. So when you find that vulnerable, state, kids are more open with you, and they're gonna share more because they see you like, wow, you feel the way I feel when somebody make fun of me, of whatever the reason may be.
Right.
But that's really, really important. But you said a couple things. It'll come back to me. I lost my train of thought, but
Yeah.
I digress. Yeah.
No, that's good stuff. And since we are like, again, just keep in mind, our goal again is gold nuggets, right? And so as we're talking, if you think of something that you feel like is something that we can throw on the table or leave on the table, if you will, for people, let's please make sure we bring light to that, because the more we get to talking about bullying prevention, the more the juices start to flow. Because like I said, I start to thinking about all of the situations and scenarios that we've had in the past, talking with people of all different ages, man. And I know that when we think about what our goal is to talk about family and to talk about business and entrepreneurship, I know just as an entrepreneur, sometimes you can be intimidated, by other people
More
or exactly, or organizations that are doing something better than you maybe perceive yourself to be, but that also intentionally create environments or roadblocks to create a distressful kind of situation for smaller businesses, right? And it's not, I won't necessarily say bullying, but it kind of alludes to that same kind of, thing. I mean, business is business, right, to a certain extent, but it's just like relationships are relationships to a certain extent. We still have to make room for other people. We have to make room for how other people feel, how other people think, whether we agree or disagree with them. And so when I think of the context of business and family and bullying, or bullying prevention, I think by the nature of how you conduct yourself, whether we're talking about business in the context of interactions maybe with your customers, right? Because you see and hear different things like the customer's always right, and then you hear some companies how they respond to that is not necessarily positive. And then other companies who take that with a lot of pride, like the customer is right, and we want to do everything we can to, and so in my industry, in construction in particular, you can see some contractors who would be borderline bully-like, right? And I'm sure as a woman who's managed some projects, right? You had experience, so you know what it's like, right? To deal with people who, and again, depending on how you define bullying, but in the context of business and customer relationships, when someone is dictating to you how they're going to provide a service that you're paying for, rather than that mutual understanding and expectation, right? It's like those are the things that I'm like, just in an effort to try to again keep us with putting something on the table. As an entrepreneur, I think my nugget would be for you to be considerate about those that you are working with or those that you are working for, and to put yourself in that position. If you were the employee or if you were the customer, how would you want to be treated?
Golden rule. We have this golden rule. We always say, treat others as you like to be treated. I'll take it a step further. Treat others as you like to be treated, but be conscious of how they want to be treated so you can treat them how they want to be treated.
Right, because if you don't know.
Right, absolutely. If you want to be treated harshly, because there are some people who just say, you know what, I'm a very blunt person and I just tell it as it is, and I expect somebody to talk to me that way.
Right.
Well, I'll start with myself. I'm not. You don't always have to beat your chest when you're talking to me.
Right.
I will always recognize your authority or your age if you're an elder, or your responsibility or whatever that is. So you really don't have to talk down to anyone because of your authority, your financial standing, or your age, or what have you. It's unnecessary. right? If you put yourself in that person's shoes and say, if it was me who was in this predicament and I'm being talked to, the way I'm being talked to, how would I feel? It's called empathy. And, unfortunately, a lot of people, once we rise to our age, our titles, our success, and what have you, we forget what it's like to be down there as a small person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, and everything else. And then we turn around and, basically do the most cruel things that was done to us. So we kind of like pass it on. It's like a virtual cycle.
It's my turn now.
Go ahead. Okay.
No. No, I mean, that's what they would be saying, the
Yeah,
person
it's my turn now.
Because they made it to that status,
Right.
they feel like, oh, now I get to do what's done to me,
Right,
making some
exactly.
comfortability in that. And that's
Yeah, and I find it to be particularly very unhelpful. Particularly if you do it intentionally. You say, hey, when I was young, somebody was cruel to me, and therefore I'm going to be cruel to other person. That makes you worse than the person who was cruel to you, because you are aware and you are conscious of what you're doing.
Right.
And if you're not, if somebody comes to you and say, hey, that thing that you're doing right here, it really hurts. Don't do it again. Right? And then you continue to do it, you make excuses for it, that right there makes you the worst person. So I'm in a place of leadership in my employment, right? And everybody in my team, and it was really interesting because we don't always get along. But one thing that I make sure that I use my authority as a leader to be kind and to always kind of try to understand where other people are coming from. And it doesn't matter what title they have. And so when I was having this conversation with a colleague, I said, if you want to irritate me very quickly, use your title and your authority to bully people that you perceive them to be less than you. So like my managers, for instance, if you use that title to make people that are reporting to you feel less, that's not impressive to me.
Right.
I'm looking, kind leaders to me, you'll go a long way.
Right.
Because that's the whole reason you're in a position of authority to lead others.
Right.
So it's really interesting because, again, having that amnesia, forgetting how it feels like to be that undergrad student,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, and then you have people that maybe, even the teacher, bullying you, you forget how that feels. So to pass it on forward, that's just, I think all of us just need to take a stand and say, what kind of a person I want to be? How do I impact others around me?
Right.
Right? Do I leave people feeling worse than I found them? Do I leave them feeling even just a little better? I don't in any way, pretend to be perfect, to be better, to be anything, but I make a conscious effort to try.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the best we can do, being kind.
That makes me think of something that I was thinking about during this week, and that's how is it that, it's really kind of, it's almost hard to say this because I have to think about myself as well, right? And how I deal with the same things. But how is it that when we have options, to respond to something, that our choice option in a lot of cases is to respond with negativity, or with defensiveness, or, everything other than compassion and empathy or understanding, or, anything that would be progressive, really, and I think about that with myself. It's like I don't see myself as a negative person. However, if I'm being completely honest with myself, there is certain things that causes me to intentionally become negative, right? Like I'll be like, oh yeah, and then you see what I mean, and I wonder from time to time why I do that, and again, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I'm intentionally trying to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
I'm intentionally trying to make you feel something, or some kind of way.
Projection,
Yeah, or it could be projection or what have you, but it's just the thought of, how relationships, how easy it is to find yourself on that line of bullying.
Right.
Whether you're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, because sometimes, people classify us as a bully, even though we might see ourselves as justified in how it is that we are acting or responding. And again, everybody is really different in that way, right? In terms of how we, matter of fact, speaking of the difference in the definition of bullying. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
I'm sorry. I need some air brakes. But no, because I was trying to cut in there, but I was listening to both of you. But I was just getting ready to touch on that, the definition of bullying, because I was reading this bullying prevention guide here, and I stumbled across the definition of bullying. So what it says here is bullying is a form of intentional abuse, right? Exclusion, feeling left out, feeling, like you're not worthy of being in a certain group, a particular crowd.
Right.
Intimidation.
Right.
That could be in a workplace. That could be kids, older siblings.
Yeah.
So that I can see that touching on everything that we just talked about.
Right. Right.
Let's see, defamation of character or harmful behavior towards others.
Right.
Absolutely.
That should be number one.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's more common. I feel like amongst workplace or just everyday people in general. But yeah, that's so. I'm sorry.
No, and that's perfectly. That's a perfect.
That was really, really good because it touches in everything that we talked about. Which is a defamation of character. Intentional harm to others.
Let him read it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, got it. AI reader. You see how I made that work? I said reading. That's it.
It resonates. Yeah.
Okay, so it says bullying is a form of intentional abuse, and that could be many different forms.
Right.
So, let's say, what did I say here? Exclusion, intimidation, defamation of character, or harmful behavior towards others.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a wide spectrum.
Among others,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is, right? But if you remember correctly, our goal with this bullying prevention guide was to try to come up with a universal definition of what bullying is. Many of the school districts that we work with, and see, like I said, when we started doing this, man, we went to high schools, we went to, like I said, Eagle Village, we've been to, many different states, universities, this work doing things for the state of Michigan, like, there's, and through all of that, right, even working with the Board of Education, the biggest problem that we saw was that most educational institutions, at least the way that I was understanding it, they were more concerned about how things looked on paper, in terms of their numbers. Like, nobody wants to be associated with bullying, right?
Yeah.
So lots of folks were playing around with the definition to kind of curb what those numbers were. But in reality, again, if you're being completely honest and you're not trying to worry about what your image looked like and really get to the root cause and really deal with the problems, the biggest thing was that, man, is people kept contorting the definition, and in some cases, like how you just read that definition was what, a sentence and a half? Bro, how about a page and a half defining what bullying is? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it ain't that complicated, man, to know that. And for us, and me in particularly, when it came down to it, the word intentional was the most significant word that I could think of in relationship to the treatment of other people.
Right, because you can do all of those things. Intentional.
Exactly.
But if you're intentionally meaning to do those.
Exactly.
And then the because comes later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter you're doing this thing because of whatever else you can come up with. But the point of the matter is that you have to recognize when you are intentionally, when you make a decision to hurt someone else, it's not that complicated, because if you flip it, would I like it if somebody is defending me, soiling my character, spreading rumors about me, or humiliating me in front of other people, that I respect? How would I feel? It's very simple. And most of the time we don't do that. But you ask a really good and a relevant question that I want to touch on, because, you said, why is it easy to just, do the negative thing, to stand up and beat your chest and say, yeah, well, I'm doing this thing because of whatever. Why is it easy to resonate to something that is just negative anyway, So in that, my husband and I, we talk about this all the time. He's 6'2", I'm 5 feet. on a good day.
4'11",
whatever,
come on,
it's
man,
still fine.
4'11".
My driver's license say 5'1". So I'm gonna say as I get older, I'm shrinking. Of course, I'm 5 feet.
Right.
You know, I'm saying cemented.
Yeah, there
Okay.
you go.
So, the point is him, because we gotta lead by example as
Right.
well. You know, if you don't want our children to perceive that being bigger, louder, have more authority, have more money, give you the ability, you know, to just bully people in all those definitions that you were describing. So my husband, when we're standing together, he definitely hovers over me. So then he's constantly reminded, watch your tone. You know, you're already bigger than me. So if you speak louder, this little people thinking, hey, when I grow up, I'm gonna be bigger, and that's how I'm gonna talk to people. That's how sometimes, you know, we teach children to be bullies without, you know, being conscious of what we do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So my husband and I, we make sure that there's a conscious effort, you know, when it comes to, you're already physically bigger. So mind that. You gotta, you know, read the room and see what else, you know, what other things we're not thinking about.
Right.
So my children watching him sometimes, smaller himself, you know, listen to what I have to say.
That's a good word.
You know what I'm saying?
Smaller himself.
Smaller himself. You know what I'm saying? And it makes my children think, you know, oh, other children see, oh, okay, just because I'm this tall, I don't have to bully those that are short, that are shorter than me.
Right.
And, you know, and the coolest people in the world, or the people that are successful, if they just add a little bit of kindness, share a different example, you know, of how to be successful, but yet be kind and not be a bully, right? Because the reason it's so easy to gravitate towards the negative response is because that's what we've been seeing on television.
Right.
You know, the bully is usually cool, bigger, and you know, he has a lot of friends and all of that. So kids want to mimic that. The bully is that mean girl with, you know, come from a rich family, has a certain physical attraction and has a lot of friends. And so when she mad, you know, at this kid, now everybody's mad at that particular kid.
Right.
You know, so it just goes on and on. And the television, really the shows and everything show this kind of, you know, shows over and over and over again. So people are mimicking themselves from that. They want to be the character that they see on TV.
Right.
And then the ones that have been bullied, it is so funny to sit back and listen to them. You know, oh, when I was in high school, I used to fight and I used to beat a whole lot of people. Like, you damn over 40 years old or 30.
Right.
You're still proud of fighting better than everybody else in school? Like, as an adult?
It's a
What do you
different
think
day.
your child is hearing?
It's a different day.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, and then why do you think also to motivate your child is to tell them how you used to beat up other kids? You see what I'm saying? How we just keep pushing it on and on and on. I talk about that. I talk about how I had to learn to fight, you know, because the other kids around me, I was a small kid and I was chubby. So every time I tried to run, I would fall. And then so if you're being chased, you're going to get beat up. I was the one to get beat up. So I had no choice but to learn to fight. But I didn't fight to go around intimidating people, right? I fought to defend myself. Right. And so that I became better at it. So it just kept the bullies away. And,
All right. Now, I just want to take a moment and thank all of those folks that have dropped in to check us out. I see Keisha Tylen just popped in. How you doing there? It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We have, what is that? Medi Marie, I think is how you pronounce it. And Tracy Nicole. Thank y'all. Thank y'all very much for dropping in. If y'all have any, you know, comments, any questions, or if maybe you got some experiences that you've had as far as bullying or bullying prevention, you know, we are definitely looking to be as interactive as possible. So that being said, what I would like to do here real quick, again, I want to throw this on the table. We are looking for those nuggets, so please keep that tucked in the back of your mind, okay? Because we are at about 45 minutes into the show right now. But what I want to do, since we've been talking about bullying and bullying prevention, one of the things, Rob, that is not in that book, I don't believe, let me look here real quick, is no, at the beginning, I don't think the first version, right, it had that poem. So I want you to read this, okay? But that's how we're going to close out the show, is with that, okay? So we'll read that. But in the meantime, what I have here is WBK's Bullying Prevention Pledge. And so I'm just going to read this real quick. It's just a short pledge of allegiance, if you will. And I thought about how each school's, you know, morning routine is to pledge allegiance to America, right? And that type of capacity. So that's where this stems from. And the way it goes is I pledge allegiance to my peers of the united world that we all belong, to the earth for which we stand, one family, doing good, preventing bullying, and restoring justice for all. So that was our idea for a bullying prevention pledge. So as we would go to schools or as we would talk to young people, especially the ones that we could connect with about bullying that really started to get it, we would kind of ask them to embrace this pledge that, each day when you go to school or when you're in your community or when you're even at home, if you have an opportunity to be a positive voice for someone that might be being bullied, right? That would be your active bystander, as opposed to the person who's just standing there watching things, or what we would call an inactive bystander. And so this pledge is one that I think that if we could get young people to start out embracing the idea that, hey, we want a better world for ourselves and for everybody else.
Right.
And if we live that as adults and we encourage that to our youth, and we practice this every day, because you want young people to understand the importance of embracing their country, and I think it's equally important to understand the importance of embracing your community. And your community is not just the neighborhood that you live in, but it's your peer group. It's the people that you interact with on a daily basis. So whether it's in an institution as far as employment goes, whether it's an educational institution as far as education goes, or as far as parental relationships at home, right? And so real quick here, we are just about to the 50-minute mark. I want to offer you all the opportunity to, what we got here? You want to go through? Okay.
I love that.
Well, hey, yeah. All right. So Rob, open up to page 2.
Yes.
And the second paragraph there, it says key discussion topics. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to take a moment to thank you for joining us. Yes, sir. The guy across the room with his hand up.
What page was that again, sir?
Page 2.
Page 2.
Second paragraph.
The questions.
There you go.
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. No, don't put the 2-2 on.
No, not today.
Yeah. So, but here we have a couple of key discussion topics. So, as we begin to start to close out this show, matter of fact, before we jump on that real quick, is there anything that either of you two recognize as a nugget that we can leave on the table for any of our viewers or that are watching today, or people who might in the future? Yes, sir.
Ooh.
You over there.
All of a sudden, my shoulder feeling better.
Always.
Raise your head.
My nugget for the day.
That's a chicken wing.
That's the chicken. My nugget for today is not chicken.
Chicken nugget.
But always be conscious
Yeah.
of the potential of bullying.
Yes.
Because if you just take that second to think, maybe what I'm getting ready to say may be a form of bullying, and be conscious of that.
Right.
I think that would, because if it's too late and you've already done it, then you've started a chain reaction with whoever the other recipient is, whoever the person is on the other end, because now they're on guard,
right,
and they're ready to be defensive. So what that does is that throws fuel back in your fire. Now you're going to stand up because you're not going to lose this battle, whether you're the adult, the parent, or somebody older, bigger, somebody that thinks they're smarter, somebody that thinks they're prettier, right? Somebody, whatever the case may be. So I think you should always sound like I dropped the mic, but just be conscious of the potential of bullying. Whether it's somebody around you or yourself.
Yeah, and you should evaluate that, right? Like in the moment, because I think that's
before you make an action, before you speak, before you respond to something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's
what does my wife say? Think about how you being received by the other person, or something to that effect.
Right.
But ultimately, because your first instinct, and this plays into how we define bullying, because the way you respond to something, you might not see it as bullying, but people may internalize it.
And they're gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
So to evaluate how you're being received is super, I think, super important. Doc, you look like you had something on your mind there.
Well, no, I'm listening to both of you, and there's another element that we haven't mentioned, but Rob, you made me think of it, because there's overt bullying as well, and there's also bullying that is not so clear, right? And sometimes they are bullies. I just saw that.
Now
Sorry.
on public TV, buddy.
Tennessee.
What?
Tennessee.
Oh,
Tennessee.
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 Tentacle C.
Tennessee. Okay, so
Sorry.
back to the point. I've noticed that there's another form of bullying where the bully is like quiet, but they're going around mobilizing what, Dr. Rama, and she's my favorite person who talks a lot about narcissism, narcissist, and, to watch out for those kind of characteristics. And she called this, check this is so interesting. So there's this bully who's going around mobilizing support, right, by spreading negative information about their target, right? And in order to get your in order to get you to see them from their perspective and support them.
Like politics.
Yeah, and what they do, it is, they do that. And there's some people who are just super good at it. And I'm not proud to say that I found myself falling for it, in other elements of my life, other people that
I think we all have at some point.
Right. Because this kind of quiet bully who's still mobilizing support, they don't come to you and say, hey, Rob H is a bad guy. Let's bully him. It's not like that.
Right.
They come to you and say, you know what? I'm feeling sad because today all I did was show kindness to Rob H. And I really want him to see that what he's doing is not helpful to him and others around him. You see how I got you emotionally? Now you're listening. And then, now while I get you in that emotion, so just so you know, Rob H is not a really kind person. All those books that he had in his book, he kind of stole them. I didn't want to say anything, but because we both want to help him.
And then you're hoping now it adds more to the player. Oh,
right.
And then,
Right. And then, you see how now
Yeah.
you're all into it emotionally.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you're changing your view about Rob H. That's called mobilizing. And Dr. Rama does a really good job on this. You call the people like that who are not taking a moment to say, hey, wait a minute. That is not my experience with Rob H. Where you get this information from?
Right.
You just find yourself being sucked in, and you start joining this bus of bullies against Rob H. You see what I'm saying? She calls those, fly-by monkeys. Be careful of the fly-by monkeys.
Wow.
People that can be. Yeah, first time when he said that, I laughed so hard, and I was one of those because it's so easy. It's the laziest thing. It's intellectually lazy to find yourself sucked in and then contribute into whatever the story is, because we don't see people like that coming. They're not so overt about their agenda. They get you emotionally to see it as if they're just trying to help. You know what I'm saying? And before you know it, it's 10 of you against Rob H.
Right.
And you're all believing this stuff that doesn't even make sense. Because people like that, these bullies that are also narcissists, they're very good at mobilizing fly-by monkeys. And before you know it, that poor Rob H is coming back to say like, but I didn't do this.
Right.
But I didn't say it. It doesn't matter. 10 people are already emotionally hijacked and believing your narrative.
I seen 10 fly monkeys said you did.
I know
You
that's
still
right.
say it's like a fly-by monkeys.
That's funny.
And I mean, I had a cape. I had Captain Fly Monkey because I'm a very emotional person, and I get sucked in about protecting others, because I wanted to be protected as a kid.
Right.
So if you come to me and say, oh my God, we're gonna protect this person because this other person is doing all these horrible things, I've learned recently, like, I can't just get sucked in and be like, oh my God, let's go protect them. I have to stop and say, wait a minute, where did you get that information from? How can I verify that this information that you're sharing with me is true before I jump into your wagon, against this person? So that's another part that we really don't talk about a lot, and that is the most effective way of bullying. I see it, in a lot of, workplaces and families and all of that. And so that person that's being bullied, imagine the double whammy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody believes you. Nobody asks you. Nobody, and it's by accident people find the truth. And by the time we all talk about it, whatever you were going through is already overshadowed, by all these, fly-by monkeys.
All right. All right, you flying monkeys.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, so
Let's not be flying
hey,
monkeys.
all right. So with that being said, to stay true to what we focusing on, right? How can understanding bullying? So here we go. We're going for our nugget, okay?
Yeah.
How? What's that?
I thought I already gave my nugget.
No. Hey, you know we trying to throw as many nuggets on the table as possible.
Right. He ain't got no
Yeah.
nugget.
No.
So
Hey, don't make me lose my
Don't
train
take
of
my
thought. Come
nugget.
on, baby, please.
Quiet.
No, seriously though. So.
I don't know about that. Sorry.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So, how can understanding bullying prevention improve our family and or our business? So let's just, because I know we have, you know, some key discussion topics here that you wanted to get to. So we have about 4 minutes real quick here. So if we could just spend a minute talking about that, how can understanding bullying, how do you think understanding it could be beneficial in your family or beneficial on the workplace? Like if you could be straight to the point.
Okay. In the workplace, you got younger guys that are probably just as skilled as older guys.
Right.
But because these older guys are feeling like, you know, hey, I know everything because I've done this all my life. Which is, you know, they're in their right to feel that way. But to these younger guys, they're going to feel like they're being bullied.
Right.
So if you can recognize those different aspects of bullying to apply to a workplace, to enforce that, you know what I mean, amongst your workers and get understanding of what that is a form of bullying.
Right.
You know, if anything, try to understand what he's trying to bring to you and see if you can work with that versus, you know, teach him the right way without beating him up to make him feel like, you know, he's never going to get it, you know.
Absolutely.
If you're there to show him and teach him, then you should focus on a way to do that without making that person feel bullied or something. So, you know, that's how I would apply it in the workplace. If I was to own a company and I had 5 or 6 employees and I knew that was circumstances, I had young and old guys,
You really want to make
I knew that would be an issue probably
Right.
sometimes, you know what I mean? So.
All right, we got Shane Madala Shabambu says that is the worst kind of bully. I call it a calculated bully. Auntie, that's a good point.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Is she bumbo?
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
shorty. Is she bumbo?
No, hey, but seriously, so that's a good
Yeah.
point, Rob,
Agree to that.
because understanding
Yeah.
those dynamics helps you build a stronger team, right? And I think that's really what I'm understanding you to say.
Right.
So, all right, so Doc, what about you?
You know, I'm gonna quote the great Bob Marley, you know, in one of his songs.
Don't
right?
worry,
It's
don't cry.
Yeah, the greatest man, one of the most greatest men you've ever seen was once just a baby. You know, not everybody's born a CEO or a millionaire, or some are born into wealth. So, but for some of us, I will leave you with this. Remember where you were. Remember where you come from. You know what I'm saying? Remember, like for me, as Dr. Lindway Helm, thank you. Dr. Lindway Helm and one of the Big Ten universities in the United States, I am humbled by remembering where I come from. You know, because I wasn't always born a director of information technology or CIO in my previous job, but I got there and it took kind people to see the potential in me.
Absolutely.
You know, so be kind and remember where you come from.
Okay.
You know, and pass that kindness to others. Be a mentor. You know, whether it's emotionally, whether it's intellectually, whether it's whatever the point is. Use your kindness to uplift others. And when you find yourself in a place of leadership, leave the door behind you open so others can come in.
Absolutely.
Remember where you come from. I like
Remember
that.
where you come from.
Right.
It sounds like you just came from KFC because that was a good chicken nugget. Oh, was it golden?
No, that was Popeye.
Golden crispy.
Oh, that was Popeye. You gotta stay in line.
That's crazy. All right, that's fabulous. Excellent point. So, all right, so we have just hit that 1 hour point, and so I just want to take a moment here real quick to, again, thank everybody who dropped in to just check out what we have to share. We look forward to, you know, your comments or any feedback that you might have for future shows. And again, tonight's show, we talked about literacy and bullying prevention. because our past couple of shows have been really kind of diving into authorship, it's diving into publishing and that whole journey. And so we felt that it was ideal to keep that ball rolling because literacy is important. Comprehension is important. And we didn't really get into some other points that I wanted to talk about, and that specifically how literacy, business, and family all correlate, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that will be things that we get a chance to discuss. Crispy Nugget Shane said, that's right. We'll have a chance to jump into the importance of literacy a little bit next week as well as we evolve that show more. So I want to end tonight's show on your recommendation, Doc. And so for all of those who are listening, and again, those who will be watching this later on down the line, we're going to leave you with 6 questions from the Bullying Prevention Guide for Parents, Kids, and Adults. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of the content that's in this guide and the purpose of this guide, which is to really help facilitate a dialogue about bullying prevention between parents, kids, and adults. And so the first question is, what can you do to educate children about bullying? I think that's an important question to think about and to talk about, with, your family and other people that you feel strongly, about. Because it's really, 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 really important to try to reach kids as early as possible because I truly believe that if people know love and that's pretty much all they know, they're going to be a lot less likely to become people who bullied others. Okay. Question number 2. What can you do if someone is being bullied in your presence? This speaks to what it is to be an active bystander or to be a bystander, as you say, in general. Many times we are in positions that we can circumvent other people from having to suffer the pain of being bullied just by engaging and interacting a little bit. We don't have to jump to people's defense and put ourselves in the line of fire, but we can disrupt that whole bullying event just by stepping in and talking or pulling somebody out of the picture.
Or you can report it.
Yep, exactly.
Report it.
Yep.
Don't act like it didn't happen.
Absolutely.
You can bring awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Question number 3. What can you do if you think a child is being bullied? Now, this speaks to a situation where this could be your child or it could be someone else's child. And, parents who are observant, and Rob, you and I, we can probably relate to this in some ways. But I'm thinking in particularly about my experience as a child in Grand Rapids. In the community that I grew up in, the whole block, everybody knew everybody. So we were all in everybody's houses.
Right.
And, adults that really are in tune with young people and really have compassion and care about young people can see things, sometimes in advance. And so if you are in a unique position where you can influence or you can guide or you can help young people because you have access in that way, it's a really, really important thing to do is to, try and contribute to, at least exposing that situation or helping them young people
Holding
find.
others accountable.
Well, you may or may not be in a position where you can do that. You know what I'm saying? That's why, if nothing else, you got to reach in at least to the child to let them know that somebody is listening, somebody cares, somebody's available.
I agree with that. 100%.
So,
yeah.
Question number 4. How do you know if a child is being bullied? Again, that's an observation thing, right? That's paying attention, that's listening, that's caring, that's really wanting to know. That's getting outside of your feelings and paying attention to someone else's feelings because I know circumstances where kids come to teachers and tell teachers, hey, I'm being bullied. And then when they describe what's happening to them, the teacher doesn't define that as bullying. They define that as kids being kids or things of that nature. So we have to be very careful to not assume that other people's feelings are the same as our feelings or they react to things the same way that we do. Correct. So I think that's a really important question to at least ask yourself, right? Question number 5, or did I say that? How did you know a child was being bullied? Oh, no. How do you know if a child is a bully, right? So that's a whole nother, perspective, if you will, because sometimes we make excuses for kids who act out, and I know in our own personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with administration. When our child was being bullied, you know, they dodged every kind of way around it to define it as something other than it for what it is.
Right.
And you know, so that's a sketchy area when
Not
you're dealing.
interested in restoring justice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So last but not least, which if you notice, all of these questions are kind of in the same context. But the last question here is, what if your child is the bully?
Mm-hmm.
See, now that opens up a whole nother question, because if your child's a bully, you have to wonder how that child became someone who chooses to treat or mistreat other people in that way.
That would be a good time to evaluate self.
There you go.
Right. And what if your friend is a bully?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What if another adult around you is a bully?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? What are you? Do you see that? Do you ignore it? Do you make excuses for it? Do you care about the person at the receiving end? You know, a
Absolutely.
dear family member of mine, you know, once brought it to my attention and said, all of this has overshadowed, you know, what I was going through. You know, and she had to repeat it twice for me to really hear, you know, what she was saying. And I often ask myself, like, what have I done to be a flying monkey, right? And so, no, that's funny.
Flying monkey.
Flying monkey, yeah.
Flying monkey.
And not seeing how we overshadow, you know, restoring justice to the person who's being bullied, because it's not always a child who's being bullied, it's adults too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the adults.
Sometimes more than kids, but they just,
Right.
if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
You know, what are we, other adults, holding each other accountable not to do that to others?
All right, we wrapping it up. Close us out, Doc.
The poet. Read it. Somebody
That's
read
your
it.
job. That's
No,
that.
you
that.
read. I like your voice.
Oh, here we
You
go
know
with
what
that.
I'm
Like
saying?
a
Hey,
mom.
no
Make
time for getting
yourself.
all romantic and stuff.
Keep the sweetness above the table, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
No diddy, no
I
diddy.
do like his
no
voice.
diddy.
No kitty, did
no
you say?
diddy.
It's velvet smooth.
All right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna end the show here. We never end on an hour, y'all. We had an hour, 1 hour and 8 minutes. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up with this wonderful poem written by the wonderful
Kiasi
Miss
Helm.
Kiasi Helm.
The author of
It's
all
called
these books.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Just Not Fair
What? By who?
by Kiasi
Kiasi,
Helm.
our oldest daughter.
Yeah. All right. I am not. Let's see here. All right. It's just not fair. I keep hoping it's just a nightmare. People shouldn't do this. It's just not fair. Victims committing suicide. Nobody to hear their silent cry. The bullying and tormenting. It's just not fair. I don't care even if it's because of stupid dare. Your actions can cause a permanent scar, internal and external, even from afar. Bullying gives you a sense of superiority while leaving victims to deal with feelings of inferiority. Our battle shields are ripped and in need of repair. Why do people do this? It's just not fair. By Kiasi Helm. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening for another great episode of Conversations Under the Hood. We hope you've enjoyed it, and please feel free to like, share, and comment. And until next week, Conversations Under the Hood, baby. Y'all have a great evening and a great week. Uh-oh, we got it all, baby. Hey, cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Ta-ta. So what y'all think? Pretty good? Y'all enjoy yourself? I feel like it was a good show.